was off too, wasn't it? At your place?
No, I actually
Woo!
had water.
Hey, everybody.
I didn't have electricity.
Okay, you don't have a. Are you going to put in a backup generator for the future? Have you thought about it?
Yeah, we have one generator. We don't have enough. So yeah, we're gonna add some more generation.
And your generator is powered by natural gas. Is that correct?
But on those private ones, they winterize them actually. So
Hey,
they'll-
Greg, you mean I looked up everything about National Grid for nothing?
Hey, guess what, Tony? We're on Facebook overtime. You wanna offer?
Oh, okay. Well, let me throw
Okay,
something
go,
down.
Tony.
I tell you what, dear Texans, if you don't want to be left out in the cold ever again, you got to start thinking big, voting in people who are going to deliver big, and let's go there. So we had NAFTA, okay, North American Free Trade Agreement. Let's do North American Steady Electricity Agreement. Let's get on the power grids of Mexico, Canada. Let's cross all these borders. Let's make sure that we're thinking into the future. Let's put some elements that are actually sustainable energy down the line. Let's make it a continental thing. I mean, that's what we got to be doing instead of Texas seceding from the electric union.
And been in the electric union forever, so that's not seceding. They're just not there, Marcus.
Gary, you said that being on the national grid would not have helped.
Not in that instance.
Did other states experience what we experienced? They got the cold, but did they experience the outages that we experienced?
No, because they had winterized their electric system, and we didn't.
So if we had been on their grid, we not have been able to.
No, they didn't have extra power to give us. So that's not. It doesn't mean that there are not.
They told
that
you
doesn't
that?
mean. Yeah, that doesn't mean there could be times in the summer where our temperatures are 110 and they're not as hot in other states, and we could draw on that power. It all depends on the demands of the grid.
Let me ask you something, Gary. Let me ask you.
Not
something.
like one size fits all.
But let me ask you something, Gary.
I think this idea of sovereignty with regard to our electricity is just a foolish conversation, right? There's no bragging rights for that.
It's the old way of
that's not
thinking
it.
of things.
I know.
You have to show. You have to be able to demonstrate. It'll be a benefit to the state.
But
This can
if
be a
we knew it
benefit to
went
the
wrong-
state. It's fine.
If we knew what went wrong, we should proceed
we know what
forward.
went wrong. We know
should
what
proceed
went wrong.
forward. We should proceed forward with all those options in mind and plan against them. So if we knew in that case a national power grid would not have worked, well then let's come up with a way. We're moving forward. We can attend to that. I mean, if we could sit down and plan this out,
We would not have had this problem if we had winterized, and that affected
exactly.
all energy, natural gas, and then we need. I mean, we got Elon Musk
why didn't we winterize?
advanced battery technology? Why?
Yeah, why
Because
didn't we winterize?
It was talked about in 2011,
Oh, money.
and then nobody insisted on it, and so nothing happened. It's just
But
kind
why-
of like the
why
It's
didn't
kind of
we
like
do
all
it?
this stuff.
Well,
It doesn't happen.
And it was talked about more recent than 2011. This came up. That was notification right before this freeze, right? And I'm
too
gonna go
late
back
then.
to.
That was too late. You can't do it at the last minute.
The problem
How
is
long-
you have too many agencies set up, and here's what happened. You saw it. Well, the governor didn't say anything, and then he put it on ERCOT, and ERCOT said, no, that's not what we do. And then they went to PUC, and then PUC.
Let's talk about the real
Nobody
conversation.
talked about the
We
Railroad
thought that
Commission that is in
Those
charge
folks,
of
those
natural
agencies
gas.
thought that this would never happen, and because they thought that it would never happen, they took a gamble. They bet on the
better
field.
system
6
set
and
up.
8. They
Well,
gambled.
It's kind of like we're never going to have another
experts-
flood, right? Bull.
Right.
Bull.
Have
We're gonna have another
experts
flood.
in charge of this.
Right.
That are two experts, one decision maker that knows what's going on and how to accountable. So we can't have this. What was them? It was them. It was them.
And there was-
Unlike the water thing in the city of Houston, where there is one decision.
for the accountable part
Can you
too, they gotta
imagine
be-
if we
they
didn't
gotta
have
pay.
water in August?
There's got to be
In
consequences.
August, and you couldn't flush your toilets. At least
Yeah.
here we had ice and snow. You could go
But,
put.
here's my question:
Thanks.
Why, Sue? Why is the media and primarily the Houston Chronicle not covering this? Why isn't City Council raising hell with the mayor about this? And we got to get this fixed. City's getting all this money from the federal
council members,
government.
Actually,
Fix it.
there are council members that have gone and said we need to talk about this. Oh, we'll put it in committee. It would be in David Robinson's committee. He just had a committee meeting. He said he would bring it on. He didn't. He didn't do it because he was encouraged not to do so.
By
And
the
he was
mayor.
told, well, we're going to get all this money, and they're going to be able to come in, and we're going to be able to fix this. But again, there's no accountability. So here's the deal. Here's who could. Yeah.
Greg, that's you.
Wait,
You need
well,
to
the
put a mic in
Congress
front of the
people
mayor
could.
and ask him, what are we going to do to make sure the water disaster doesn't happen again?
And you know what, Gary, I misspoke. We lost water pressure.
Okay.
A significant amount.
So Marcus, call your friend the mayor and tell him fix the water problem instead of hiding.
Gary, here's who
apparently
could
we're not
ask.
friends. I don't have the mayor's phone number.
So
Okay.
there was a
Actually, I do. I'll
there
give
was
it
a
to you.
congressional subcommittee hearing that was held when they talked about electricity. There could be a subcommittee hearing from Congress because we took Harvey federal dollars that were supposed to buy the backup generators to make sure this would not happen.
What happened to
But
the
where
money?
is that money? Well, where is it? So
You know,
I don't know.
Here's the
Crenshaw
problem.
goes to committee and ask the mayor.
You mentioned consequences. You mentioned consequences. Here's what we've been trained as
How did you
Texans
flush
and
your toilet,
Americans.
Tony?
Going through the whole thing, it's like we wait 3 weeks, 3 months. This happened, the power grid went off a decade ago. We let it slide. The flooding,
Right.
we're going to let it slide. The shootings, it's kind of like we are used to such trauma. We worry about it, and then it's just swept under the rug.
So here's the question
It's
then,
swept
Tony.
under the rug because your representatives on council have no ability to bring this forward.
You know
That's
what?
true.
And I look, I hear what we're talking about putting, and we didn't have enough time to discuss that during the thing. I hear what we're talking about council members not having the opportunity to put something on the agenda, but council members don't use the power that they have currently. Council members have the ability to majority vote against something that they don't want to vote for, to rule it out, yet they consistently choose not to. They cower down, and that doesn't have anything to do with the
Well, that's
agenda.
'cause
They cower
Marcus,
down.
Who do
that's
they cower down to? Who do they cower down to?
The
They
bully.
cower down to, that
The
left
bully.
turn signal that you wanted, that you've been advocating for. That might get put back.
Right,
we're
but
gonna
that,
have to
that Charles,
Look,
help me. Does
I've
this bill change that though? It doesn't change that.
It's so
Yes,
what
it does.
yeah. So what she's saying is that the reason they cower down is because whatever they've been advocating for might
They
get
get threatened.
And
Yeah.
now they would be able to, with their colleagues, 2 of their colleagues, to say, let's put this on the agenda, regardless of what the mayor says. I mean, it would have to still obviously be legal and under all the parameters of being vetted as a policy.
You were talking about mayor stronger government, and Sue, you had personal experience. When Mayor Lanier was in office, we had a significant number of conservative votes on council, and they did stand up to the mayor and made changes because they were able to get the votes. Now that's changed. There's less conservatives on council, and for whatever reason, Tony's allies on council don't want to rock the boat with the mayor and raise hell, which they should, because it's not a conservative or liberal issue that the water should work. It's not a Republican or Democratic issue. Just like we're talking about the
mix
grid.
all those things
Same
together?
things. No, they have nothing to do with it. But it requires
They don't, Gary, but you
people
introduced
to
them.
lobby and leadership and look. Turner is, Sylvester Turner, who I've known for 35 years, Marcus, I traveled with him. When he was a state legislator, he was a really good legislator. He was effective. He was able to build coalitions. For some reason, when he became mayor, he forgot all those skills he had learned and became a dictator, basically, as mayor.
I gotta
Didn't
say
have
one
to
thing.
do that.
Well, I don't know that he
Laser
forgot. I
focused.
think he got frustrated being one of 150 members unable to champion what he wanted.
But he got things done there. He got things
Right,
done
I
in
know, I
Austin.
agree. I'm just saying, you can look at this seat and see I can do whatever I want there. In a sense, I mean, not whatever I want, but I can go there and do nearly whatever I want.
Let me ask you this. Let's ask everyone here. Okay, let's say you're mayor, okay? And we had the water problem. Would you be hiding from the water problem? Would you suppress it? Would you try to make it go away, not solving the problem because you don't want to get blamed for what happened as opposed to being a problem solver? I don't think anybody here
I would have
do that.
worked with Biden's infrastructure plan to fix the infrastructure, and then everyone would have water.
But all the attention is on the governor, and he doesn't want to change that.
So I happened to be in that situation during Ike. I was on council with Bill White, and you remember you may have to boil your water. We were so close to losing our water supply, and we did it. And actually, there was a group of us that went into the mayor and said, we want answers about this right now. We want to know how it's going to be fixed. If not, we are going to be vocal, and we're not going to leave this alone. And
let me ask you this.
But he brought the public works director in, made him explain to us how this happened, and then those issues were fixed. And it was proven to us that they were, because he didn't want us to go public with this, but he also wanted it fixed. Well, that's not happening. Nobody can have those kind of conversations right now saying, I want to know what it was.
Are you saying that there's no work in public works to identify what happened during the storm, and zero changes are being made to fix that? Do we know that?
Nobody's told us. There's been no report.
And
no report.
And here are a couple of questions. One, is there a report that's acceptable, right? Is it possible in this climate for an elected official to come forward and say, you know what, we identified what happened during this storm, and here are the corrections that we made in order to prevent that?
What's wrong with that?
Is there a climate for that? No.
What's wrong with that, Marcus?
Because if you
actually, I think that's leadership, and I think the people would appreciate that, as opposed to hiding.
But if you come forward and say, okay, here are the 5 things that we identified, the chance of people saying, oh, okay, we accept your leadership, they're slim. That's just not the climate we're in. Here's the other question: is it acceptable for something like 2 days of lost water, or however many days there were of lost water, to happen in a natural disaster? Is it avoidable?
It was. We know it was. They had a failure of backup generators.
Because I don't know.
Backup generators. So why didn't those back up? And were those the ones that FEMA gave us the money for? Because if they were, they were.
The backup generators are for the water?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah. To keep it, you have to switch over, and usually they're natural gas. Some of them run off diesel. But depending upon which they are.
The issue too is that you've got the whole state mad at Abbott. That's going to take all the bandwidth, and it should. Now, not to leave.
Abbott can do the same thing. Abbott can do the same thing by coming out for things we need to do to make sure it never happens again. And then people say, okay, he's solving the problem. But Marcus is right.
Instead,
the problem is politicians, they got no cojones. They don't want to do it. They want to hide.
Basically,
man, I look for leadership matters, and the idea that we don't have on a national level, on the state level, local level, the idea that we don't have people that come forward and say, you know what, hey guys, messed up. This is where we messed up, and these are the things we need to do in order to fix this. Nobody takes ownership.
Here's the thing, though. I'm looking at the Facebook comments, and it's like we keep talking about what happened with the storm. There are people commenting on Facebook who are saying they still haven't even been repaired since the storm, since some of the issues. One lady, Lakeisha, saying that she's in Spring, and they have mold on their apartment, and the apartment's not even doing anything. And so imagine how many people out there are dealing with that. And that's the county, and so we don't have the leaders stepping up there either fixing some of these issues. I mean, it's
sounds like a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Hey guys, let me shift gears.
Gary, you want to go ahead and plug your firm?
Hey guys, hey, can I shift our gears for a second?
Marcus is going to go in the plumbing business.
Let's go back to the infrastructure bill. And if you guys did your homework, and almost all of you do, you know that $1 trillion of dollars of the $2 trillion bill has nothing to do with shovel-ready projects. It's all retraining and money for elderly health care or actually increasing the pay of folks who deliver that care, which are disproportionately women and women of color. But, is that mislabeling things, calling that human infrastructure? I mean, it's like, why don't you deal with that issue separate and aside from people? When people hear infrastructure, they want to see something standing at the end of spending all the money. Anyway, take it from there.
Greg, it's a great point, and it's one of the problems I believe we have in our legislature, right? We want to, and again, this may be me and my ignorance of me being naive. I just don't understand why we don't make legislation as simple as possible. If we're trying to pass infrastructure bills, let's just pass the bill about the infrastructure. And that's not to say that all the other things that we're talking about doing aren't good things, I think we do ourselves a disservice when we try to lump all that stuff in there together.
Marcus. But here's what happens. The reason they do this, and this is especially in Washington, they love these omnibus bills where they pack in every Christmas tree ornament they can think, because they put things in they couldn't normally pass. And that's what's wrong with I don't think, if we passed a real budget, Greg, in the last 20 years, I don't think so. We pass the omnibus bills, they throw all the pork in there, and you got to vote for the pork and the stuff you don't want in order to get the infrastructure. So, look, but Republicans are guilty of this too, as well as Democrats, though I would say Biden and his administration has made it a fine art of deception and packing these
you
bills.
Were almost
Republicans would Republicans would support a true infrastructure bill. Now,
Marcus,
Tony's right that Trump had an opportunity to push one, and for whatever reason, he didn't do it. And that was legitimate criticism, because he should have. But that's what the bill should be.
I think he'd still be president right now if he had. But let me throw this out there, Marcus. And again, we can either bicker or sort through it. It's boring to sort through because you mentioned, why don't they make these bills so direct? You know what I was thinking about is that when you had Obamacare, Trump couldn't just come through and dismantle it, not because, of course, partisans going to say it was, opaque for reasonable reasons. No, you're bringing together the whole nation level by level, laws. And I think that's really what the trick is. We're kind of victims of our own size, where if you're going to do a federal law, it has to appeal to state law. And I think that's kind of the give and take, is for us to do national laws, which is why we're a country, we need that. But when leaders bicker, we don't get that, because there's some moments, I think, where we do have that overlap, but that's not it. Okay, so
but some of it, Marcus, is the process. I mean, it's not just Biden going, I'm going to spread all this stuff out. It's starting with this, and then you have to go get votes. And so most of the add-ons that happen come from the representatives. Like, I really want to vote for that, but man, I could really go for it if you would slide this in underneath here. It won't make any harm. It'll be okay, and you'll have me. They use that leverage of, you want my vote, but I want this. And even if you're in the majority, you have to keep that majority. And everybody up there knows how to play that game.
And unfortunately, by the time you go to all 535, everybody slid something in. And that is that's just ridiculous. I think a good representative should be able to look at this and say, okay, we need 2 million miles of pipe laid. Let's
yeah, but it's not as if we're just printing this money. They're raising the corporate income tax. It's coming out of Marcus's pocket. It's coming out of Gary's pocket. I don't know.
It's coming out of.
No, it'll come out of my pocket, because you think that they go, I'm going to cut my profit margin. No. If Marcus has to stay alive and be able to make a margin, pay his employees, then what do? You raise your prices.
Raise prices, hire less people, add a lower wage if possible.
But there will be jobs in this package.
And here's where the problems. This is the problem the Democrats have, right? You're trying to do this tax thing. Then last month you were trying to do the minimum wage thing. Both of those impact small businesses. In the last 60 days, there have been proposals to double the labor costs, to increase the cost on small business. One, doubling the labor costs. Two, now adding a tax, adding on a tax in there. How do they expect businesses to survive doing that? And it's not.
They don't worry about small business. They worry about big business, because that's who they're in bed with, Marcus. And that's a problem again. More so now with the Democrats, but in the past, the Republicans were just as guilty of being in bed with big business. But now big business is totally turned on the Republicans. So I expect that you'll see Republicans now sing the praises of small business. And
they gave a reason why, Gary. The whole Republican Party, is in shambles. I mean, look at your leader. Come on, man.
Well, and I think also the reason
Charles is my leader.
This makes the case for looking for new revenue. So you could, if you legalize marijuana in this state, That would be a whole new revenue stream.
Sportsbook,
Yeah,
gambling.
You just did gambling. People that want to gamble in Texas
$1 billion a year.
Look, one of our city leaders, one of our city leaders, one of our state, one of the most reputable businessmen in the nation, but who resides right here in the city of Houston, just went on live in front of the nation, said, "I'm betting $1 million on the University of Houston winning the whole thing." We're betting in the city of Houston. He's just not doing it in the city of Houston.
Out of state. It benefited out of state.
Hey, by the way, congratulations to the University of Houston for making it to the Final Four and playing their hearts out. They didn't get the W that they had hoped for, but we got to give it up for them going up there and showing up and
they had a great run. They have a great coach. Run. They got a great future. They got a great
City was great. TSU,
and man, that coach is absolutely
class, isn't he? He's total class.
Yeah, and the Texas kids should stay in Texas and go to the University of Houston.
Yeah.
Well, I would say they would stay in. I would say they would stay in Texas and go to Texas Southern, but you know.
Hey, hey guys, I wanted to give Tony an opportunity. He's been following and pushing some legislation in Austin that's getting a hearing. You want to take it, T?
Oh, sure. Actually, this Thursday, April 6th, House Bill 1504 is getting a hearing in the Education Committee, which is headed by Texas State Representative Dutton. This bill would allow school districts to let Mexican American studies, African American studies count towards high school graduation requirements. It's a substitution. So it would fit in instead of world geography or any of the courses in that track that people
want. American history, is that okay too, Tony? Can they take that?
Gary,
in case you didn't know, American history is Mexican history. Remember that whole little swath? Remember that whole little swath outside of Louisiana?
History. I'm okay with it.
That America stole
instead of
from
geography.
Mexico. You don't remember that?
Native American history. Yeah.
It was a war. I said geography. You want to take Mexican American studies? That's fine. But I don't want them cutting out Texas history or American history.
There's not
Texas history is Mexican history. I don't understand.
Okay,
what are you saying?
You're telling me that Tony doesn't need a special class. That's what you're saying, Marcus.
Gary, you're arguing with 1921. Gary, 1921 call. They want their rhetoric back. Okay, so
whatever.
So basically,
whatever.
1504.
You need to learn about what it means to be an American. History. It's important.
I have learned. You need to learn.
And yes, you need to learn that being American means we go and we fight wars.
Hey, Marcus, I'm older than you. When I was in college, I took classes and I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, a number of good African American books that the professors thought we should be exposed to, and I'm glad I was exposed to it. That was a good thing, not a bad thing.
Gary,
but I do think we're neglecting American history and Texas history.
But that's a whole other issue, Gary. You should learn how education system works. Then you should talk to the history department.
How is American history being neglected? How?
Look, Marcus. All I said was if Tony wants to add that in lieu of things like world geography or things like that, and they should get credit to graduate, I'm fine with that.
I think we should know that America stole half of the country from Mexico.
Oh,
what? You said study. I learned that in school.
Hey, yeah, you didn't.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you what's most surprising. Tony, did you say that this bill was being backed by Dutton?
So the victor goes to the spoils. That's how it works.
So are you saying that Charles Dutton is actually passing legislation that's beneficial to education?
Harold Dutton.
Harold Dutton.
Absolutely. Harold's a good man.
Gary, I want to ask you a question, Gary.
Passing legislation that dismantles our school district? Come on, guys. Passing legislation that attempts to dismantle.
Harold is absolutely spot on HISD. It's a train wreck, and I will tell you who's getting screwed around are the minority students who don't have the resources.
It's a train wreck on the state's part. That's what a train wreck is.
Come on, our school board's a joke.
The state has really
our state
Harold, I'm gonna tell you,
at the bottom of the totem pole.
Wait a minute.
Greg, you interviewed Harold about this. This isn't something we can do next time.
Education. The state of Texas
is in the bottom of the bottom of the poll.
Is not an expert on education. It is proven that we do a terrible job at the state legislature on the state level with regard to education.
Our local HISD is a joke. Okay.
No, it is not.
Texas. Gary, the Texas approach to education is where the joke is. That's what a joke is.
Goes
it's
to
been
Oh, let's Sue talk for a second.
It is not a joke.
Okay, she's going to a privileged school and not the school that average kids go to in HISD. I mean, did you see the numbers of kids who have disappeared from HISD?
Gary.
Well, no.
And look at the numbers.
Hold on.
Look at those same numbers on the state level. Look at those same numbers on a state level and how the state of Texas is faring. How the state of Texas is faring with regard to education. We like to look at independent districts and say, "Oh, you're failing, you're failing."
It's not the HISD you went to. It's changed. It's not what it was.
I have the issues with HISD. What I'm saying is, on a state level, we're denying that the state has a problem. The state is not qualified to come in and address.
So who does?
No, listen to what I'm saying. The state of Texas is the same state that said let's take North Forest and put it up under HISD. When I told the state,
that wasn't helpful.
Huh?
That wasn't helpful.
No, it wasn't helpful. And who did that? Who did that? The state of Texas. That's how smart they are on education. They took a failing district and put it under another failing district, saying, "Oh, this is going to work."
Hey, Sue, I want to hear what Sue has to say.
Yeah. Yes.
Look, you may have your issues with the board. I certainly have. But I can tell you my interactions with the principals and the teachers, especially during COVID, is they've been tremendous, beyond the call of duty in making sure that children are educated. And look, there's classrooms where they have half the class that are online and half that are in trying to go with the wishes of the parents of how they want their children to be educated. And
online education is generally a failure. Okay, we know that.
Gary, you went to school in 1927. you have no clue on what. But I tell you what, the school district did mess up, though. I agree with you on this. Yeah. Letting a talent like Dr. Latham go was I mean,
she was treated badly.
Someone who was dedicated to this district, who saw this district through Harvey, who saw this district through the ice storm, and then all of a sudden we decide that she's not the person to run the district. Well, that was crazy.
We have the right, because we're the one who elects those school board members, and if you think they're not right, put somebody on there that you think. Gary, I want to ask you.
You think the school board's good, Sue? Are you kidding me?
No, I didn't say that. I said we all have the right to elect.
So I said Tony should run. He knows education.
Well, but they're not got a brain either.
Well, people that know about education.
You want to talk about representation, Tony? You should run.
Yes, absolutely.
I'd support you.
Hey, did we already talk about why?
Me and Marcus are talking about running for governor. We got to figure out who's going to run with the weed platform. So,
Tony, you got to consult my campaign manager, my treasurer, Mr. Blaine, and Mr. Pollard.
It'll mean Go Green will take on a whole
new meaning, right?
Oh yeah, that's true. Good point.
Hey, Gary,
Sue, you could run for school board too. You'd be good.
Hey, Sue, I love that. Go Green can stand for marijuana and for gambling.
Can you imagine the day? Can you imagine the day Macy's is selling weed? When you walk in, they spray you with CBD.
Oh, jeez.
Hey, I love CBD bath bombs. I want to ask you, Gary, about the bill about consolidating the appellate courts.
Right.
What your thoughts are?
Well, the theory behind this is they've surveyed the amount of work generated by each district, and they found that a number of the districts, that were created years and years ago are now in areas of the state that don't have any significant number of appeals. I mean, look, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, all have lots of appeals, and those courts stay busy, but these other courts aren't staying busy. So the state said, hey, we can save money by consolidating some of these courts that we just don't need because they don't have the demand for the appeal. So that's the theory behind it. And of course, the opposition says it's racist.
Decisions like the 14th appellate court hasn't issued decisions in a couple of years.
Well, the other thing I don't like about the Court of Appeals and how they work, Sue, in Texas is they bug you to get your brief in, to get the record in, and they give you these tight deadlines, and they don't always give you an extension, right? But then when it comes to ruling, they take forever at times because political.
On that note, another week passes without Texans knowing whether collective bargaining is constitutional, whether Proposition B was constitutional.
3 years. 3.
And
they're like a chicken sitting on the egg waiting for it to hatch. Like, come on.
Yeah, they're just waiting.
Those are not difficult issues.
I agree with you, Sue. I agree. And I think that the court should have a deadline of when they have to rule and not be able to take this on forever. The other thing I don't like is you used to be able to ask for oral argument and you would get it. And now you have to ask for it. And then the court decides whether they want to hear you or not. So in my last 4 appeals, and some of which were, I think, significant issues, I asked for oral argument. I was turned down. It involved juvenile rights and how they're treated in our system. And I was turned down every time. So, I don't like that either.
Hey, why don't we leave it right there? I want to wish you all a happy Easter, a happy Passover, and appreciate the conversation. You're all great. Have a good one.
So Charles, I guess we need to get invited over for lunch with our candidate for governor and go over what we need to do.
Well, I want to know who's Tony's running for mayor. I'm still flipping through my Rolodex going.
Facebook audience, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll do overtime again next week.
We got who's running for mayor now that Asa Vader is gone.
Thank God.
Sonny Crockett.
Hallelujah.
Gracie Sines. What about Gracie Sines?
That's who you were talking about.
Gracie Sines is very capable. She's a smart lady. I agree.
Oh, so I'm sorry.